Thank you for this introduction. I was asked to speak on what the CFO tells the CIO in these turbulent times. You know, in TCS, we are going through a fairly major turbulent time now, especially with the kind of economic environment that you find outside of India. I totally agree with Mr. Ajay Chaudhary when he says that in Singapore they look at with envy at India. It is, when you go outside, it's certainly far worse than what it is at this time. But as I look, in my role as a CFO now, I have been a programmer, I've designed systems, I have looked after marketing and so on, but they were all in what I would call a previous life, when life was a little less stressful. All that you had was the project deadlines that you had to meet at various points in time, but not the kind of stress that one goes through in terms of looking at what the future is going to hold for you, and certainly in terms of being able to interact extensively with the investors at this time. But as I look at the current turbulent times, although we might be a little better at this time, and certainly people have been talking in terms of the GDP growth in India, at least you get variety of estimates and so on. You starting from, of course, 4.5% to about 7%, but no one is really in the region where, but and of course, I don't believe it's going to be less than 5% as far as India is concerned in terms of GDP growth, and that should be a fairly optimistic story for most of the organizations who are present here. But there are going to be, you wouldn't really have kind of a situation where you're going to have an evenly poised kind of growth during this period. There are going to be sectors which are going to be affected in far greater measure than other sectors. You're also going to have sectors where although it looks reasonably rosy at this point in time, but as you go along, the issues are going to become tougher and tougher. And therefore, in most organizations, regardless of whether you're in India or Singapore or United States or any of those places, the kind of budget cut that is going to be coming in, the kind of demand that the organization is going to be placing on every aspect of it, whether it is manufacturing, whether it is marketing, and certainly when it comes to information systems and so on, that the demand is going to be pretty severe, and certainly we expect that every expenditure item is going to get questioned. The kind of issue that one faces outside of India these days, especially with companies that we deal with, is that there is absolutely no permanency as far as jobs are concerned. We deal with one CIO one day, and you go, one of my colleagues was graphically describing to me as to how close he is to the customer, and he had gone on leave and he came back after about 2 or 3 weeks, and he found that the CIO that he was dealing with was no longer there. And this is one of the larger organizations and so on. And therefore, in this kind of conditions, when demand that is going to be placed on people is going to be extremely severe, and when the attention of the organization, the focus of the organization is going to be in terms of ensuring that there is a phenomenal amount of cost cutting that's going to take place. And no longer would people talk in terms of value addition, but certainly in terms of ensuring that the budget cuts are taking place and so on. So this is the kind of environment that we are getting into. And therefore, in my own role as a chief financial officer within my company, I have been taking a hard look at many of the things that have been happening there. If I look back in the last 5 years that I have been a CFO, and that I have been signing various checks and so on, what I have found is that most of the time, certainly from 2003 to 2000, part of 2008, it has been an era when we have continued to keep on expanding the IT budgets all the time. There has not been a single time where we have looked at an IT budget. When I talk about IT budget, I talk about the capital expenditure as well as the operating expenditure. When I talk about the IT budget, I not only talk in terms of operating expenditure, in terms of certain software usage and so on, but also in terms of variety of things, the support mechanism that goes along with it in terms of people, in terms of who would maintain, what kind of things will go on and so on. So there is it has been an environment where we have had to continuously increase the budget over a period of time. The other thing that has been happening as far as the IT department has been concerned is the extent of lack of governance that has taken place as far as IT is concerned. In most other areas, if we have to essentially get a large manufacturing plant open or whatever, you would really go through a process by which the return on investment is periodically, is defined upfront. There is a measurement system that is put in place in terms of seeing that the investment is delivering the returns. There is a measurement system that is put in place in terms of ensuring that the project gets executed in time and so on. But when it comes to IT, and I have been part of that sector, as I said, I have been in the areas of developing systems and so on, that the whole governance process in terms of what is to be delivered, what are the benefits from whatever you are doing, and how do we measure this whole thing. One of the things that that I have been noticing of late, I never used to do that even about a year earlier, is in terms of doing a detailed activity analysis on the activities that happen in the realm of the information technology area of my own company. What happens there? What are the various things? One of the questions that have been asked of me at various points in time by my chief executive is, what are the discretionary spends that are there as far as IT is concerned? It has been extremely difficult for us to really find out what are the discretionary spend that goes on, because every single thing that has been identified is that this enhancement that needs to get made, these are the additional people that need to be there, these are the specialist resources which we have to get on a contract basis and so on. There isn't really any detailed analysis in terms of various activities and various tasks that are being done, and whether they are adding value, they are not adding value, and many of those kinds of aspects are absolutely lacking. So what I'm saying is that the IT as an area has been going through a period when the budgets have continued to increase. I don't know whether the vendors will accept that or not, but certainly that's something that I find that has been going on in my own organization. The second thing is that there is very little of justification and a governance mechanism, a gatekeeping mechanism to ensure that many of these additional expenses are taking place in as rigorous a manner as possible. And more important, although we come across in many of the surveys that you have a measure in terms of what kind of expenses that you incur as a percentage of revenue in IT. There are some surveys that I have really gone ahead and seen, and I have essentially tried to look at it as my own organization as to whether this kind of expenditure is justified or not. And I have found that, one, the manner in which it gets calculated is also, as I mentioned, not appropriate. And the second thing is that kind of a measure is just not there, where I could say that this organization, this place which is similarly placed, is spending so much of money on IT as percentage of revenue, and therefore I can benchmark it with that place and certainly see whether we are overspending or underspending and so on. So there are, so this is the kind of environment from where we are essentially moving from an area, from an environment of reasonable indiscipline. So the next stage is, as we hit this trough, until 2007-8, that was for last year, when we reached the turnover of $5.7 billion, and we had crossed $1 billion in terms of our net profit after taxation, and so on. it was a reasonably easy life. We were growing at a rate of 37% and so on.